And here are my honorable mentions. First up, we'll talk about 8th MS Team, a series that really humanizes the characters that fought in the One-Year War, specifically the regular, non-special humans that weren't new types. Here we get to see their fears, their passions, and just really, it's like a slice of life, because with everyday people, these fights aren't as easy as just piloting a regular Gundam or having a special new type ability. It's just the human strength and the human will to keep going, and the fears and other things that come with that makes this a very humanizing and very gritty series. Next up, we have Stardust Memory. With Stardust Memory, it serves as a connective tissue between the original Gundam series and Zeta Gundam. Here, alliances are forged, and we kind of see what happened with some Xeon remnants, and how certain technologies are built in a way, and I guess how some designs went from kind of clunkier, more square-looking machines in the original Gundam to more streamlined and even a little more edgy machines in Zeta Gundam, as well as kind of explaining the formation of the Titans and how certain characters came to power in the Titans. Next up, we have Double Zeta Gundam, or Mobile ZZ Gundam. It may not be a lot of people's favorites, but I do appreciate the fact that it exists, especially after going from knowing a little bit about the regular Gundam series, Zeta Gundam, watching it in its entirety, and then also watching Char's Counterattack. It can be a very depressing ride, especially if you just jump from each one to the next, especially after the ending of Char's Counterattack. And with Double Zeta, it may be a little bit more lighthearted, but in a way I appreciate the effort, and I appreciate its existence because it's a nice little way to kind of, at least to me personally, pad out the transition from Zeta to Char's Counterattack. And there are cool moments in here, but admittedly, it isn't essential to your experience if you don't want to watch it. And last and certainly not least is Mobile Fighter G Gundam. With G Gundam, it checks off two boxes for me. One, over-the-top action, and just, some hammy and then some cheesy moments, but if you know me, I love my ham and cheese, so bring on the ham and cheese sandwich. I eat that stuff up. And also, to me, it explains how some of the Gundams can move like they do. Because in G Fighter, the pilots' bodies are what pilot the Gundams. Like, there aren't any knobs or like switches or pedals to work to make these things do all these flips and insane maneuvers. It's actually a person. And even though like some of the movements that people are making are kind of crazy and nonsensical sometimes, it at least explains how the Gundams themselves can do it. And this series is close to my heart because it's actually the second Gundam series that I actually started to watch when I was younger. The third and first being the ones that I will talk about very soon. And now we get to talk about my top two favorites. I say top two because depending on the criteria we're looking at, sometimes one, if we're looking at more practical reasons, one is higher up than the other, or if it's just for fun, one ranks higher up than the other. So, in this case, I think I'll just do it based on personal preference and fun, although it's a very close call. So, my number two is Mobile Zeta Gundam. Now, Zeta Gundam has a special place in my heart because I actually consumed a lot of knowledge regarding Zeta Gundam in a weird way. So I ended up, back when Blockbuster was still a thing, I would play the demo. And the demo for Zeta Gundam would have a few different suits to pick from, and between playing it there and then also at other places like Target, Walmart, places like that, I started to like it. Even though at the time I only wanted to see like a couple Gundams or even scratch the surface on what was happening. But after a while, I would actually get the game and I'd play through its Universal Century mode, where you would actually play through a lot of the characters' scenarios in the actual series. Some, like the regular ones, with people's actual fates of dying or getting horribly scarred through this experience, or alternate versions. So what ends up happening is I play through all of that and I like get the gist of the story. And then after a while I want to actually go back and watch the series. So when I watch the series, it's kind of amazing because in the game they had a lot of the same actors playing these characters. So then when I'm actually watching the show, it's like, oh wow, this character says this, and oh, this is the same line this person said, and oh, I know exactly what's going to happen, or oh, that's different because sometimes, well, of course, the animation has different, and certain episodes that weren't transitioned into the game or the game modes. So it was very nice as to kind of pick out which ones I remembered and kind of see new aspects and gain more context to some of those missions that I'd played. But as for the series as a whole, I have to say it is a very it's it's a dark ride, but also a ride that's filled with, I'd say, a fair amount of character moments and just, for me, some fun and satisfying moments. And our protagonist Camille Bidan, I feel like doesn't get enough love out there because, okay, if I hadn't said it before, there's some spoilers, but anyways, he loses both his parents and then after a while has to, well, is forced to grow up and become a soldier and does a damn good job, I think. But there's a moment when, after what happened to destroying the Psycho Gundam 2, where he's talking to Char, who's Quattro Regina, and like he says something, and like Char asks him if he's okay with all this, and then uh, Camille just says, I wouldn't be a great soldier if I kept worrying about things like this, basically. Then there's a moment where Char just looks away, and you could tell that there's, at least to me personally, that there's regret. He's just like, oh wow, what did we do? Because he was forced to grow up so fast. And ultimately, what ends up happening in this series is, it's actually my first introduction to a Gundam series where sometimes a lot of people die, especially towards the last two episodes of the series. Like, the Titans are basically wiped out. Like, and you see everybody just start dying out of nowhere. And I know it's war, but still, it's just so, like, brutal. And then the AU, the opposing side that's supposed to serve as our, like our white base members, our Federation members, are, they get, like, sorely just defeated. They win, but they lose so many people, and even Camille, after a very kick-ass scene where he uses his Gundam in a Wave Rider mode to impale Papinus Shirako's O, and then Shirako ends up dealing a fatal blow to him, and at the end, it's just sad because you just see the Hyakushiki's messed up, even though it's implied that somehow he survived, Char. And after growing with all the characters, I actually felt sad for them. I felt a sense of dread and a little depressed. I mean, that's a whole other can of worms, but it was bad. But in a way, I appreciate this series for making me feel things like that, because it just means that, they did a good job developing their characters and just creating a world where people could actually relate and feel for these characters. That's probably another reason why I liked Double Zeta, side note, is because Judo decked Wong Lee really good. For some reason, I just never liked that scene where he corrects Camille. It just seemed a bit much. But anyways, that's enough of that. That's for all those reasons, that's why Zeta Gundam is one of my favorites. Also, I should add that they actually did make a 3-part kind of OVA with some remastered and reanimated scenes from Zeta Gundam that actually gives some characters a different ending, and I've only seen the first two, but from what I've seen, it's it's refreshing, but it is a little jarring for the to see original scenes and then scenes like with quality similar to Seed, not in animation, but just in quality. And I know what happens at the end, and I gotta say, I still want to go through and watch it, but I really want to see it. I really want to see a more positive ending in terms of Zeta. Although it definitely makes it more open-ended on if they're trying to make sure Double Zeta didn't happen. I I don't know.